Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new edition of GameTales, a show where we throw the dice to see what we're talking about. I'm gonna say it landed on 20, but it's actually a 15. But anyway, so
You know
Stefan.
how many times I had to roll the dice for my I have a video about the top 5 sword and sorcery movies to watch during your D&D campaign, and at the end of the intro I roll a die and it's a 1. You know how many times I had to roll that for that 1 to actually result there?
Once.
It took I think it was a couple of minutes of constant rolling a d20. Anyway,
I managed to get a 21 while I was recording a bit, I think for the year that game
21.
thing. Yeah, I hit a 20, like on the first try.
Okay.
But if you want to consistently hit ones with your rolls, just ask any of my my compatriots from the various campaigns I've played within the past years. They will always roll a 1. Like, I've never seen people roll a 1 more often than they have. It's amazing. It's like a form of art. So, I believe we're talking about Dungeons and Dragons, aren't we, Stephen, from the channel Stephen Nonsense?
Good morning, afternoon, evening. Beep. Unicom. Sorry about that. I just use your actual name there for a while.
No worries.
You can beep that.
Oh, it'll be mysterious. It'll be more mysterious if my name wasn't everywhere else.
That'll be awesome. I'm like beep. Yes, we are talking about D&D mostly. I'm all decked out with my D20 pizza die.
And me with my Dick Tracy T-shirt. It's okay. I didn't have one.
It is Dick Tracy yellow, so that works.
Yeah.
But we'll also be talking about like tabletop RPGs in general.
Yeah.
Because on my channel, mostly video games, sure, but every once in a while, like last week, I actually talked about an indie tabletop RPG system. Because even in that realm, I still go for the indies. Because damn it, when it comes to tabletop RPGs, I think indies actually need considerably more attention, more awareness than in the video game realm. So yeah, tabletop RPGs with a focus on D&D, because I do believe that most people who get into the realm of
that
paper
was our gateway drug.
Or tabletop, will start with one shade or form or nuance of D&D.
And this is going to be a long show, so we're going to split it into 2 halves. It's going to be one this week and one next week.
Yes, most likely. Also because next week I'm on vacation.
Yeah. Steven, I'm going to make a prediction. I think I know what was your first contact with Dungeons and Dragons. It was an episode of Dexter, wasn't it?
That was actually that was the first contact where I was old enough and I was aware enough of things to actually put various information from the past together. Because up until that point, there was E.T.
Oh, yeah.
And there was the actual Dungeons and Dragons animated cartoon, which was never actually finished, that occasionally ran on a C-grade television network called in Romania called TTRPG.
Oh my god, it was actually there?
Yeah,
I never saw it.
But the problem is that it was so this was like early to the mid 90s.
Early 90s, like.
Yeah, so schedules weren't a thing. Actual program schedules weren't a thing. So they just it was all over the place. But fast forward maybe a couple of years, and when I see that episode of Dexter's Laboratory, which I think is in which they play minotaurs and mazes, I think, or mazes and minotaurs,
something like yeah.
That's where things clicked, because that's where that's where I made the connection, because I remember seeing in ET like the kids at the table with the screen, and I was like, what? But I was really young when I saw ET also. So yeah, but that was and I do remember thinking quite consciously thinking to myself that I'm like, this is interesting, because by that time I had already started playing video games. I don't think I had the NES, but I had already played on the Spectrum ZX clone that I think of I'm considering doing a bit of a tiny video about that. But yeah, I think that's the spark. That was the idea spark or the gateway spark for a lot of us who grew up
Yeah.
after the who were born / grew up around the time or after the Iron Curtain
Yeah.
completely went on fire.
That episode of Dexter's Lab is pretty much the place where the idea of D&D began for pretty much everybody I know. They all learned about it from there.
Dungeon
Everybody.
Forest.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a simple idea. Why doesn't everybody use it? Well, actually, I know a bunch of games that use it. Like the latest one, the Grimoire has dungeon forests. A lot of them.
Well, on the other hand, that's Grimoire, and what Grimoire does is just Grimoire. It's just Cleveland at its Clevelandiest, I guess.
So after Dexter's Laboratory, what was the next bit of your journey?
Oh, I think that was like a giant. Like I think it was like a decade of nothing. There was the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Oh God, I saw that one.
Which, despite its horribleness, I enjoyed a lot because that was like that was basically the only sort of contact we could have, because this was still way before the internet. And I could kind of tell it was shitty back then, but I really enjoyed it. And that's kind of like when my passion for watching really bad but entertaining movie, because it's a bad movie but it's entertaining as a motherfucker,
and it's got beholders in it.
It does have beholders in it. Also, it has like an elf with nipple armor, which is kind of but anyway.
Also, there's a Doctor Who there that's an elf and has magic, and elves are magic.
I'm healing you.
Yeah. Healing magic. Elves are magic. Woohoo.
Yes. But yeah, by far in that movie, if there's one thing that you get away from that movie is that's so wonderful. So after watching that, and after that guy with the glasses does that all throughout his review of the movie, I'm like, I would want to do that also, but I can't do that if I'm gonna review Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm like, nah, it can wait. I don't think I might give it a try at a certain point. But Jeremy Irons, man, the amount of chewing of the scenery he does, it's like I think that was the best thing he's ever done. I mean, yeah, he did like a bunch of really serious stuff, but man, do you see? Can you see? And tangent, whoo! That's a thing I've noticed with a lot of British actors.
They do stupid stuff.
If you don't, if they either, usually I guess it all falls down to the director. And if the director doesn't have like a clear vision or can give them a proper actual direction,
they will go complete ham.
They will eat up they will chew up every piece of the scenery and they will ham it up, because Sir Patrick Stewart, he occasionally does that on Star Trek TNG. Like that episode in which Sarek puts his feelings into him, his emotions. Sarek is Spock's dad. And just because they were damaging him because Vulcans. Anyway. So Jean-Luc Picard is feeling all of Sarek's like pent up decades of emotions at the same time. And the acting decision he makes at a certain point is to bark, pretty much. So they will eat up the scenery. Also, his name isn't, I don't know, I think his name
Blue
is
Lips.
Oh no, we're gonna get we're gonna get to him. God damn it, I'm forgetting his name.
Which one? What character?
Of Blue Lips, the actor, actually.
Oh, Bruce Payne.
Bruce Payne, who, by the way, that isn't his worst role. His worst role is in the fucking Highlander 3rd, 4th sequel. I don't know, he's in one of the Highlander sequels.
Oh, the 4th one. Oh God, yeah,
yes. In which he's like, don't you want to be inside me?
Yeah.
I mean, The blue lips, that's fine, I guess, and the like weird tentacle shit. But that, no. But again, so I was on like British actors, Ham. So that was okay. Back. One thing I really enjoyed about the movie, and something that literally no one has actually said, because I don't know how many people reviewed the movie and actually played the game, is that there's at least one piece of gameplay realism in the movie, and that is when the white dude and the Wayans brother are they're thieves, and they're in the marketplace. And whilst the white dude is talking to people, the Wayans brother is just stealing shit and no one's noticing. And I'm like, that's a brilliant representation of when you roll a skill.
Yeah.
That was like the only real thing that, and I don't think anyone's actually stressing that's kind of like what it would look like, oh shit, it's an 18 and their AC was 15, yoink.
I'm curious, have you seen any of the sequels to the movie?
No, but I want. Oh, actually, no. I saw the second one. Yeah, I did not see the third one, which is on YouTube. By the way, if anyone's interested, it is the full movie is on actual YouTube, or it was last time I checked. I plan to do D&D review month once, like years ago when I was doing more movies as well, but it didn't. Sorry about it. It didn't really pan out, mostly because
Yeah. You just can't do the same thing that he did because it'll be a bit derivative.
yeah.
What were your feelings on the second movie? I thought it was a bit better as a movie than the
It was
first
a
one,
bit.
but a bit more boring because it didn't have the
It didn't have that. It didn't have the fucking gauntlet of thieves, whatever the
yeah,
shit.
the maze of what's his name that had two rooms.
Yeah. But no. So in the first one, there was that whole thieves guild gauntlet thing.
Yeah, with
where
two rooms.
where stuff. But I think there was a similar trap puzzle thing in the second one. The second one was much more gameplay. It had way more gameplay sort of touches to it. Like it had like one of the characters I remember looking through like a gem to see
Yep.
secret stuff, and there was that sort of stuff.
One of them gets stuck in a wall. They cut her arm off.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah,
It's gonna
magic. Roll the one. Something happened.
But yeah, that was so. What came after This Is Left for you?
Well, for me, it was pretty much jumping onto video games. It was like a giant leap of pretty much nothing, and then video games, and then the D&D movie came along as well around that time for me as well. It wasn't really how should I put this? I started realizing that episode of Dexter's Laboratory was about D&D only after I started playing actual D&D games like Baldur's Gate and stuff. Like I was all the way like to that point. I kept reading about D&D and some magazines like Extreme PC, like Level, but I still didn't really understand what the deal was with it, like what it was about, how you played it, how the rules worked, how things functioned, and that like took me a long while to actually get into because we didn't really have access to any of the materials in our neck of the woods.
No. And so again, the 90s in post-communist Romania, hard times, really hard times from in any respect, in any aspect, regardless how it was nice that we could actually have access to like world news and stuff, but otherwise from an economic, financial, social standpoint, it was very, it wasn't great. Growing up for us wasn't that great. So yeah, it did take quite a while. I didn't actually. So after there was the movie, which was interesting, and then there was internet. The internet started to creep in at about that time, maybe a bit later. And once the internet, once I got broadband, basically, which in my case was kind of relatively early. I got it in 2004.
Oh, nice.
I got broadband. I got broadband in 2004 3 days before my baccalaureate exams.
Oh, you poor bastard.
No, actually, it was good because if I had gotten it earlier, I don't know if I had passed
Oh.
the exams. So it was actually, I was like, I can withstand 3 days with that. And after that, woo. So 2004, that's when I finished high school. And after that, yeah, I started. We could find information once we got broadband, and we can. Uh, weren't that many videos. There were no videos basically back then about it, but lots of blogs. There were blogs that there were websites. We're gonna call it. Lots of websites that we could find information, and then once we got into the torrent age, we
Yeah.
could actually find PDFs of the books.
And there were a lot of D&D personality tests, like what alignment are you? What class are you? What race
What
are
the
you?
shit is an alignment?
Yeah.
If you don't know what.
Yeah.
But yeah, so at a certain point, we started. Once we got actual internet, we could better understand what this was and how it functioned. Mind you, it was still out of our reach, both financially and anything else, because we didn't have multi-faced dice. We
Oh.
didn't. Yeah, it
We
was
could
still a
make it out of
different.
chalk, though.
Yeah, or if you didn't have, if you're a prisoner, they make them out of like super compressed
Soap.
paper.
But yeah. That.
Yeah, and whatever else they use for glue, cornstarch. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, not that. Um, the interest was building, and like you said, RPGs were actually most of them were based around what we would later find out to be a D20 system.
For us, it was a bit different because there was a huge gap between when we started getting video games, pirated video games, and when we actually had access to the internet. Like all throughout high school, pretty much none of us had access to proper internet. We had dial-up, which we use sometimes, like in really, really sort of.
Yeah, for patches.
If we wanted to spend like an entire night downloading XCOM 1, which has less than 1 megabyte. That's the kind of internet we had.
It was kind of marginally useful for patches and updates back then.
Google loaded, so there's that. We also had
the communicator, man.
Oh yeah, we had the internet at our school, which was actually lightning fast. It had 12 kilos a second speed. That's mind bending. You could download XCOM in like a couple of minutes. It's amazing, not an entire night. But we didn't really have a lot of D&D related stuff coming from the internet because we sort of didn't know where to look for it. So a friend of mine actually started developing his own system for us to eventually play with. He meant to design it for a game, like for an actual video game, but he made it like work on paper because that's how he planned to test it. He never finished it. But he sort of combined ideas from a bit of Fallout, a bit of Diablo, with sort of heroes like turn orders and stuff like that. But it wasn't based on dice. It was based pretty much on sort of like decisions you would make. And I don't think I actually got far enough to decide things like the results of events, how they would be calculated. I'm not sure if he went for dice or something else, but for the longest time there was no dice mechanic in there. So we still pretty much have no idea how things work in terms of D&D until like really, really later on when we went our ways and went to college, and that's when we got internet and we met our people. And well, he got into D&D groups. I got stuck with engineering here in Brela, and people seeing him on there during courses, and teachers getting mad and giving us really awful exams for it. Yeah. But then I got internet as well. And that's when things changed. The internet, oh my God, changed everything.
It was, and I think, unfortunately, considering the political issues that the internet is facing this year, especially in the EU, which is where we live.
Yeah, if you're watching this on Monday, the internet may be already be dead.
Or at least, really broken
Yeah.
around these parts. We'll probably have to make a video after these two about how the internet has changed,
And
because
has how it changed us.
and how it's
I used
changed
to be
us,
black.
because back then you also used to have a functioning liver.
Yeah.
Um,
And hair.
because back then the internet and I believe it still is, the internet was a giant a giant equalizer, because it helped us at least partially do kind of catch up to a certain degree what was basically happening in the West for 30 years at that point. D&D's first edition was, I think, in 78
Yeah, around that time, yeah.
or around that time, and this is us in 2004, and we still had almost no clue about what D&D is or was. And I think that because just recently, Screw Attack finally uh, dissolved
Gave up the
the
ghost, yeah.
brand. The brand dissolved, and I was reading a bit about it, and that's true that it came from a period of the internet that was so different than what we have today, especially for gamers of
Yeah.
any stripe. But again, I think we're gonna save this for a future episode. Back to D&D and tabletop in general. So me and my in my group of friends, in my circle of friends, we were all gamers. Takes one to birds of a feather fly in the same pixels. Um, but we were exclusively video gamers, because again, that's all we had. Board games were never a big thing. I mean, I liked it. I had Monopoly from a while back, which back then was the only thing you could have. It's that and Scrabble.
Yeah,
Which
we also had Privatizare, which is the Romanian version of Monopoly, based on the idea of privatizing formerly state-owned businesses that were actually sort of confiscated by the communists like 80 years ago, and now they
yes,
were
they
being
were
privatized.
nationalized,
Yeah.
or collectivized. We're not no politics. Yeah,
It was a reskin of Monopoly.
yeah,
Probably
there's
unlicensed. Probably unlicensed, yeah.
most likely. So, although, by the way, Monopoly was made by socialists to show you how bad capitalism can be. So
Yeah.
there's that, which is funny.
Also, there's a video on YouTube about how Monopoly is the worst board game ever. Go check it out.
It is kind of bad, but still kind of fun when that's the only thing you. Yeah,
it's better than being kicked in the nuts.
It's better than backgammon. I'm gonna tell you that.
Yeah, I would agree. I agree.
So yeah, but we were video gamers. We all pretty much loved RPGs. And we were kind of sort of talking at a certain point about maybe giving this tabletop thing a try. But the obstacle at that point in time was we had gotten from a complete lack of information to overwhelming information, because there was so much info out there, and there were so many books, and there were so many editions, and there were so many systems, that actually deciding or choosing something was actually it was a bit of what I call it, not what is called
clusterfunk.
No, it's basically paralysis by analysis.
Oh yeah,
sometimes having too much choice can be bad, because it will basically delay you from actually making a choice. So yeah, anyway, but what got us moving onto it was, interestingly enough, the fan-made Fallout pen and paper game, which exists or existed. I believe it still exists. So some crazy mofos somewhere basically made a pen and paper version of Fallout, and it kind of worked like the game, to be honest. The calculations were really annoying and insane also, because in Fallout you had armor had resistance and threshold, and so that was annoying, and chances to hit would change whenever the distance between you and the enemy would change as well. So you basically had to calculate percentage chances of hitting every basically time you took a shot if you were using or if the enemy was using ranged weapons. And it was really it was a very math heavy approach. It was a very math heavy system, so much so that I asked one of my group who knew a bit of Pascal to basically make a quick calculator in which I would just enter the variables and it would give me the number, because otherwise it would take like minutes, whole minutes to
Mhm.
calculate. Anyway, so we actually we managed to print out the book. One print from one of our friends had access to like infinite ink,
Mhm.
infinite printer ink, let's say, and he printed out like the 300 page or 200 page book. I don't think I still have it, but anyway. And yeah, we started playing that, and we played that for quite a bit, for quite a while. It was enjoyable because it allowed us to basically make play in the Fallout universe, but with our own spin on things, and different type of stuff. At a certain point it became a bit too my awareness of D&D and of the other systems started to creep into this. Also, I had played uh, Dragon Age Origins, which I enjoyed a lot. I think I'm gonna do a review of it later this year. But I really enjoyed I remember enjoying the combat in the game, the various abilities. It was a pretty, mechanically speaking, it functioned very well. Story
Mhm.
wise, okay, but mechanically speaking, it was a solid game. And I started doing something similar. I started taking the Dragon Age sort of system and modifying it and trying to translate it into like a fantasy set tabletop game. Um, but we're gonna jump back into that. What was your start per se?
Well, I got into reading books much as you, just by loading them off the internet after I got the internet. This was when I already was very, very deep into video games, into role playing games. I had finished, I think, Baldur's Gate 2 3 times by then. I was just playing it like just to see what other stupid ways I could find to win. I tried to make an Uber Paladin, like to mod an Uber Paladin in the game that would have all the abilities of the previous Paladin classes. So like the resistance to level drain from the Undead Hunter, the dispel of the Inquisitor, and I think there was one more that had some super duper spells or stuff. Anyway, I tried to do that in Baldur's Gate, and also tried to make a permanent version of there's a room in the Throne of Baal, what's his name, Watcher's Keep, I think. There's a room that causes all magic to become wild magic. Any spell like can be completely kooky, and I tried to find the exact thing, the exact line of the exact property, and attach it to something in the game, like an item, like the character, something that will always be there and just cause all the spells to go haywire. I wanted this specifically because I wanted to see what would happen if Irenicus, instead of escaping when he casts that town portal or dimension door, he just turns into a cow. I just want to see that. I never managed to find it, but I kept looking. And while I was looking, I was also looking at books for D&D. I started reading them, especially that was around when 3.5 really became super duper popular. So it was the thing that people really got excited to about. So that's the main one that I started to read up on. But when it came to actually playing a proper D&D session, the first one I came close to playing was the second edition one, and this was already after Roll20 came along. Roll20 being a service that allows people from all over the world to play board games of any kind through the internet in the same session. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool. It's not the first of its kind. There were others before it. People have been playing these games through forum posts. I tried it once. It didn't work out. We couldn't really get the scheduling right.
Kind
And
of like mail chess.
yeah, sort of like that. And I didn't actually get the chance to properly play that second edition session either because the scheduling fell off and the DM had to go. But I did get as far as creating my character, Thorm the Red, who was a really stupid paladin. And I mean, he had borderline intelligence level. Like if he was 1 point lower, he would be like sort of like, there's the expression "dumb as a sack of bricks." He would have been exactly that, like the intelligence of a sack of bricks.
Like under Forrest Gump level.
I think I even asked the Spoony one, how would I roleplay a character that dumb, and he said, "Well, as long as you have enough wisdom to, I think something along, if you have enough wisdom to know that you are dumb, maybe you can just skate by not trying to actually use your wits because you don't have any." I think it was
Yeah,
something
okay.
like that. I should probably try and find the tweet that he sent me. I'm probably gonna edit it and post and see if that's actually what
Yeah.
he said, or maybe I'm misremembering it. But I kind of enjoyed the idea of the character. Cell, I never got to play him that way. Though the next year I did come up with was also Thorm the Paladin, who was also kind of an idiot. I've never managed to roll a character that had all rolls over 10. Most of them had at least 2 rolls that were under 8, which made for some very interesting choices in terms of how you play and how you attribute the stats. The first proper session I ever played of a board game, of a role playing game, I mean, was actually Pathfinder, which is a spin off, if you will, of 3.5, which is the one I was most familiar with. And I played it with some friends of mine from Națiunea Jucătoare, which is a Romanian channel on YouTube that hasn't posted content in quite a while. Shame on you, Iwan. You should post more content on there. Also,
And in English.
yeah,
We can help.
it'll really help with the audience. But we've played with that group, or similarly that group. We've played, I think, sessions since, I think that was 2013. We've played for 6 years on and off, like various campaigns. The first one we started, the Pathfinder one, we never finished it. We got 3 sessions or 3 sessions in, and the group started to crumble because people started, they had to go to work, they had to move, they had to do stuff, and well, that got scrapped. But we started a new one that lasted for around 3 years, like a continuous campaign that lasted for about 3 years. It was an
Yeah,
amazing experience.
life tends to happen a lot to D&D.
Yeah.
But the thing is, and I've noticed this relatively recently, life tends to happen, but it's temporary.
Yeah.
Now, this temporary could be months, it could also be years, but at a certain point, your life will you'll reach a point of balance where hopefully, but generally, I think this is what happens. I can only tell you from my 33 years of existing. At a certain point, you get to a point of balance when and where you can actually return to the things you used to do. Granted, not with the same amount of time, because most likely by now, and that's why life happened, will be different responsibilities. But you've been doing them for enough time that they're not urgent anymore. Even if they are priorities, they're not urgent anymore, and you can actually come back to what it used to be. So that's why there's a lot of 30 somethings, 40 somethings who are getting back into
Hmm.
tabletop RPGs or board games or video games. This is one of the reasons behind the what I call the retro renaissance. One of the reasons why the 8-bit, 16-bit indies and the sort of very cult following games have a certain amount of success, is because all of those people that grew up with those games, life happened to them, they got used to it, and now they have a bit of time to actually go back to that stuff. Tangent on life later. um so I was actually, oh, by the way, don't forget, when we're close to 1 hour, let
Oh,
me know.
we still got a long way. Oh, actually, I remember something. Before I actually got into playing properly, there were like 3 things that happened. Saw a movie called The Gamers, It was horrible. No,
We're gonna talk
no,
about
no. It's
Darkness Rising.
not the gamers. It was just gamers about some people having like the longest recorded D&D session history. It
Yeah,
was kind
but
of
we're gonna talk about Darkness Rising
oh,
later.
we are. That was kind of an awful movie. Like the only funny joke was that the DM would often like dress in sort of kooky suits, like to inspire fear in the hearts of the players. So it'll be like mysterious and dreadful. And at one time he got a costume that thought would look like intimidating and mysterious, but he sort of put on his robe and wizard hat, and realized, and just like walked around town and then realized, looked in a window in the shop window and realized, oh god, oh no, this costume is all white. Oh god no, oh god no. That was probably the only funny thing in the movie.
Okay.
And then I saw The Gamers like on YouTube. And
The first one or Darkness Rising?
the first one, and it was
Okay,
just an amazing movie.
I saw the first one after Darkness Rising.
And there was also a French one where again it was the group of D&D players, and one of them basically played Boba Fett, and
Okay.
it's more of a short movie, and so sorry. When the characters went to sleep, he rolled a stealth roll and proceeded to have intercourse with one of his party members.
Surprise butt sex.
Yeah, and he succeeded. Like I think he rolled a 20.
Yeah, ooh. Yeah, that was quite special. Yeah, we're also gonna get into the problems with the D20 system.
Yeah.
Continue.
And then the thing that really cemented the idea that I really need to take up playing Dungeons and Dragons with people was the Spoony One's videos about what has happened in his campaigns over the years.
Yeah, but that's, I mean, okay, but I was already playing by then.
So you were in luck. I didn't. Like I
Yeah,
had not
so-
yet started playing when he started the Conor Market stuff.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, those are great videos, by the way. Yeah, so when I was last time, uh, just played Fallout Pen and Paper, and I was trying to actually make a fantasy version blending sort of Fallout's system and Dragon Age Origins. And I was working on things because a lot of the Fallout stuff, I mean, special system can work for melee as well. Pain in the ass, but it can work. I mean, actually, I played entire Fallout 1 with a melee character. But again, it's a difference when the computer does all the calculations.
Yeah.
It's I streamed it. It's on my channel, just in case you have
Watch
something
it.
in case you don't have anything to do for like 12 hours. By the way, Unicom was watching, and one of the coolest moments of the entire stream, in which I critically hit a super mutant in the eye with a cattle prod for like 80 damage. That was extreme.
I think you exploded him instantly.
No, I didn't explode him because I didn't have a bloody mess, but it was glorious. So I was doing that, and the thing is, I was using D&D monsters as my monster ideas for this system, and I actually played I did a bit of a test run with my friends, just checking to see how the abilities work and that sort of stuff. And at a certain point, I was like, why don't I just since I was using the D&D monsters, I was like, let's pay more. Let me pay a bit more attention to actually the system now that I have this experience, because I already had the experience of understanding the Fallout system, which again, kind of heavy when there's no computer to deal with everything. So that's when I started reading into D&D and D&D editions, and that's also when I started was also 3.5. We actually started playing when 4th edition was just coming out. It was gonna come out in a couple of months, but I was like, I was in the sense that I knew this time wouldn't. If we don't start now, we're not gonna start in 5 months. So I was like, no, we're gonna go with 3.5 because there's a lot of material on the internet about it,
Mhm.
and it also I can't really remember. I'm not sure if we had already played Temple of Elemental Evil by then. I think we had. This is difficult to pinpoint because I think that was another one of the reasons why I said we can play 3.5, because this was basically what Temple of Elemental Evil was. Like buggy to the glitchy fuckingness that that game was kind of cool.
The thing
Um,
that really bugged me about Temple of Elemental Evil happened like in the first 15 minutes of the game. You walk into a tavern, your dwarf says, I'm gonna take part in this drinking contest. Instantly, your paladin that's in the corner somewhere doing his own thing becomes fallen because he didn't stop the dwarf from drinking.
yes, the alignment system is, yeah. I think we're gonna save the in-depth discussion of the systems for part two,
Yeah,
because we're still in memories now.
yeah.
Um, so we decided on 3.5, and in as far as editions go, 3.5 at that point was and still is one of the more appreciated editions. Wasn't as tough as nails as the first two. It wasn't as random as the first two either, although one could argue the various random effects that could happen in the older editions by just drinking potions.
Mhm.
Kind of, it's cool and funny, but the idea was with 3.5 it allowed you to actually create a much more stable constant. It allowed you to have like a campaign that would span years maybe. So we started with 3.5, and it took a while to get everyone on board and give them. I was quite aware that no one had the required discipline to DM this shit if I don't do it. So I took it upon myself for quite a while to DM and not play, because I thought the least amount of info they have to absorb, the better. Turns out they weren't willing to absorb that info at all, at the very least. So during play, I learned, besides the DMing part, I learned how to better play their characters than they did, because I had to remember, don't you have fast shot?
Yeah, people
Um,
will quite often not know how to best use their character.
yes, because at least in my situation, they were used with video games,
Hmm.
and video games make it really easy for you to do that.
Yeah.
There's icons, there's flashy stuff, there's tooltips, there's D&D realm, in tabletop realm. It's just you and the page basically, or whatever system you're using to keep track of stuff. It's usually a pen and a paper. But I did start DMing for I don't know how many adventures. I call them adventures because I didn't actually like the idea, and I still don't like the idea of running a long campaign. I don't see I do not see the attraction in it. What I do see the attraction in is basically, and this stems from my filmmaking interest and experience, is that I'm when playing D&D, I'm much more interested in basically seeing a new episode. I want to see a new adventure each episode.
Mhm.
Take the quantum leap approach. Every episode something new happens. So my approach was, we're doing episodic adventures. Each session is its own self-enclosed episode, but the characters are the same. It's basically like a show, like a TV show, in which different stuff happens each episode, but we have the same protagonist. And this turned out to be a great idea, actually, even if I do say so myself, because it allowed me slash us to, at a certain point, introduce the idea of rotating GMing.
Hmm.
Because after I don't know how many of these, I just wanted to play. I wanted to have fun, because there's a the DM does more than double duty, especially if especially if he or she does a good job at it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Because the amount of prep time that goes into preparing an adventure, a session, can vary, but for me it was quite large because I like to understand how each creature worked, or where to set them, or where they were set, or how the encounters would go, calculate the experience beforehand, that sort of stuff. Take into consideration at least three fucking crazy things that the party might do, and know how to react to those. So depending on that, it's a lot of work. I do not suggest drinking while doing it. Just yeah. Anyway, um so we did that for several sessions, and at a certain point I was like, okay guys, I really can't do this. It's the mental load is just too much.
Mm-hmm.
I want to take a break once in a while. And since we were playing episodic adventures, it would matter. It was just like having a different director each time,
Yep.
but basically the same thing. And that worked pretty well. I mean, we had people who maybe they said like, I just that's just not me, I can't do it. I'm like, that's fine. But there were also the others who took up the mantle and gave us, the group, a very experiences that I wouldn't have thought of. So that's why I think rotating DMs or GMs is not only a good idea, it actually should be done in general. And otherwise, when one of us was DMing or GMing, their character would be basically our NPC, and they wouldn't partake in decision making, but they would deal damage or heal. Basically, they were just there.
They're in a corner somewhere, like off in the
So
distance.
yeah, so that they would still get XP, basically. So
Yeah.
the illusion of progression, the illusion of this party did this, and then the same party did this completely other thing, was still there.
We had we described the idea of NPCing somebody's character as turning them into a cardboard cutout and just like holding them like beneath our arm. Yeah, like that.
It hit people with a cardboard
Yeah,
cutter.
that's it. We actually used somebody as a battering ram that way once. It worked.
Well, a lot of crazy stuff can and should and will happen in D&D, partially because of how the world is built, partially because of dice rolls, which I have an issue with. Uh, but another thing that you can do with basically any tabletop system is you house rule that motherfucker.
Oh yeah, you can also do stupid things like one of the systems we started playing recently is called Dungeon Crawl Classics, in which you start off with 4 characters, and most of them, all of them, will probably die. And one of the characters that a friend of mine had was a tax collector from the village that every one of our character was, and everybody hated him. So near the end of the initial episode, they threw him off a boat and just chugged him into the mouth of a leviathan just to get rid of him. Nobody liked him.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, sure. Yes, by the way, D&D tip. If the DM gives you the impression that there will be any sort of seafaring going on,
Don't wear heavy armor.
yes, anyone wearing anything related to metal armor, don't. Get yourself some leather and
Learn to
yeah.
summon dolphins.
Dolphins, water breathing potions or spells, that sort of stuff. Spears are good. Spears are generally really good. So yeah, just a quick aside there. So in one and talking about this, in one of the episodic adventure that one of the other party members was DMing, we were on a boat, motherfucker, on a boat. And that was kind of dubiousness. But we were attacked by a kraken. We were super low level, and again, I enjoyed the D&D, especially after level 3 and up until level 7, 8 for the characters. It's just my preference.
Yeah,
That's
that's where it's
where,
most balanced.
yeah, that's where they're capable of stuff, but can also be not necessarily killed, but very much impeded by basic stuff
Hmm.
like ice. I was sorry about that one. So what he did was actually he introduced something nice that I wouldn't have thought of. We had ballistas on the ship, and there was an even number of us, and there was an odd number of ballistas. So some parts of the ship would always be uncovered.
Hmm.
There were holes where we could be. So each turn we had to decide where we would be situated, and then we would see where the tentacles pop up, which was most likely random as well. So depending on how we chose where we stood, we could fire the ballistas at the kraken. We managed to beat the kraken. We didn't
Nice.
kill the kraken, but we had so many good choices in the luck basically that we managed to fight it off. And the idea was that he had created that encounter just so we would be uh, out, just to destroy the ship and the cargo, because the previous adventure, the previous episode, DM was kind of new at this, and he gave us way too much money. The ship was ours, by the way. We bought that
Oh,
fucker,
nice.
and we had and it was loaded with our gold. So the idea was to actually take us down a peg, because having a lot of gold in the game is not cool as far as I'm concerned. I don't want this to be super easy. I want them to be challenged. I want them, because I want my players to actually use the skills that both their characters have, but also role play stuff. I'm a big role player, not role, not ROLE player. And I was always very interested in them using this sort of the actual role playing part as opposed to rolling dice, because that's another issue I hit with some of them. Since we were all basically video gamers, um, they were just used to hit stuff until it
Hmm.
dies, break down the door, kill everything, loot corpses, whatever. And I was really trying to incentivize them to maybe talk to the NPCs, get a better idea of what's going on there, that sort of stuff. So my personal approach to DMing D&D is I am extraordinarily stingy with magical items. You can't even imagine how stingy I am with magical items. By the time the group was around level 5 or 6, I think maybe there were 3 magical items among between 4 or 5 characters. In my vision of in my worlds, magic is rare. There's magic users, sure, but magic items kind of hard to find. I put way more focus on masterwork weapons
Hmm.
and the things that can actually be built without the magic part of it. But that's just my approach. And in general, I noticed ever since stopping playing D&D and absorbing more video games and reading a lot of other systems. If you look at my channel, I have reviewed a bunch of indie systems. Though mind you, most of them are sci-fi, because even in a niche that needs more awareness, like indie tabletop systems, sci-fi themed indie tabletop systems need even more so, because fantasy tends to be the go-to.
Yeah. You can blame Lord of the Rings for that.
Pretty much, yeah. Tolkien is a yeah. Unfortunately, you can. Or fortunately, it depends. I don't know. Depends on where you stand with it. You cannot. He did create like the archetypes
Yeah, that everybody's
that
ripping off.
that Gygax then used and basically cemented into what we now consider to be like traditional approach. Like, and I've seen designers try to move away from those things, but you just can't because they are,
Yeah, it's difficult. It's what people expect to see.
on the one hand, but it's not like there is alternative. You can get alternatives. Once it's like building an RPG without a tank, a DPS, or a healer.
You could technically do it, but you're gonna have to be really, really kooky about it.
You can, yeah, technically, mathematically, yeah, it's possible. It's possible to be done, but those three major classes are there for a reason. They exist. They were created because they came out of us, the gaming and developers, basically trying, experiencing, min-maxing stuff, min-maxing the D&D systems,
Yeah.
min-maxing video
Otherwise,
games.
you end up with a tank mage.
Yes. And it reached that moment when everything was distilled to these general classes, these very, very condensed classes. Now there's hybrid classes, and now there's a bit now the things are a bit more balanced, let's say. But those major things, the classes and the races, basically, you're generally gonna have something that is medium humanoid sized in shape. You'll have something that is small and stout humanoid sized in shape, sort of. Someone that is a thin, taller humanoid sized shape,
Hmm.
and something that is really big humanoid sized shape in general. Sure, the humanoid part there doesn't necessarily have to be there, but the sizes and shapes tend to be the same because we all subconsciously connect them to human, dwarf, elf, orc, troll, whatever.
Yeah, and I think I have some pictures of miniatures with them that you sent me,
Yeah,
with all sorts of characters, races.
yeah, those are actually made. If you compare those, don't mind the really bad painting. That was me when I was starting to paint miniatures, and I was using little acrylics. Those aren't proper miniature painting acrylics. Also, those miniatures weren't meant to be painted either. Those miniatures come from a D&D board game sort of thing, in which you had maps on squares that you would make like a puzzle, and the dice system was different. It was kind of like a D&D, but it was a great find for us. One of our friends lived in the Netherlands, lived in the Netherlands for a long time, and he found. And I told him to look for D&D stuff, like secondhand D&D stuff, if he ever sees anything like that. That's what. And he actually did find this. He found this game, and we were interested in. I wasn't interested in the game. I was interested in the miniatures because it had those four heroes. It's a wizard, a thief, a cleric, and
Some guy with a sword and a shield.
fighter, and a fighter. And if you look close at them, they actually look like the illustrations in the 3.5, which is mind-boggling. But the game also came with a bunch of other. It came with a bunch of goblins, skeletons, wraiths, trolls, that sort of stuff. So it helped us. It actually helped us play the game a bit better because we had the minis, and we also played. We also used the Legos a bunch. I have a picture somewhere. I didn't find it in time for recording this, but yeah, we used a combination of those and Legos because
That's
again, these sort of things did not exist in Romania for
yeah.
the longest time.
I think we're getting close to the 1 hour mark. We should do an outro now and tell people
Yes,
to
yes.
be on the lookout for what we're going to have on our channel soon. So, what's on
Mhm.
your channel soon?
On my channel this coming week or this week, depending on when Raul is actually going to upload this motherfucker, is Warhammer 40k Dawn of War DOS
And if
with
you're looking at the mission, you can see there's a space marine there in the distance with the four
yeah,
figurines.
with Chaos Rising. A bit of
Nice,
Chaos Rising
nice.
discussion there because I wanted to do Retribution, but I've never played Retribution, and I noticed that they basically made campaigns for all the playable races. So I kind of need to play a lot more retribution in order to talk about it. But I did play Dawn of War 2. I played it once on its own. Played it a second time with Chaos Rising, so I know what I'm talking about. So that's gonna be this week. Yes, that's about it for me this week. Yeah, you?
I think on your recommendation, I may try to do a video on that the Julius open source version of Caesar 3 and see how it runs.
Yeah, actually,
It looked impressive.
it does look really good. I tweeted the. By the way, watchers, both of us are quite a bit more active on Twitter. We tend to
Yeah.
share more stuff there, so find us there. I'm Stephen Ansens and he's Unicom. So
Or
it's not
MC Shepard, it depends on what you're looking
yeah,
for.
it's not that hard. Yeah, it's not that hard to find us.
Yeah, also watch out for that god of marketing guy. He may look like me, but he's actually my evil doppelganger.
Twin from alternate dimension.
Yeah, he wanted the marketing instead of video games.
Yeah, you can find actually a link to my Twitter on the YouTube page on all of those linky icon thingies around there somewhere. There's a link to my Twitter
And
account.
mine is at the end of the video. Like there's a screen of it.
Yes, that's right. Also, you can find them in.
Yeah, I'm easy to find.
I most likely reply to something he said. So yeah, but yeah, that's about it for part 1 of our D&D/table talk.
Come back next time where the extravaganza continues.
Oh yeah.
And let's roll a 20. It's on the floor and the dog's gonna eat it. Goodbye.